Pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a roll call of members
Dr. Malloy,
here.
Mr. Mignon,
Here.
Mr. Hoff, Mr. Greenwood, Mrs. Irwin Adams, Mr. Johnston, Mr. Francis, Mrs. McGinnis, Mr. Cook.
Is he on the Zoom? Good.
Yes.
I'd like to announce that we had an executive session prior to this meeting to discuss personnel issues. Okay, at this time, hearing from citizens. I don't see anybody here to speak to us. So we can move on. Under new business, we have a number of items. We have the AAEA contract, the ASCME contract. C, we have compensation plan revisions. D, we have compensation plan, medical plans and premium share. E, elimination of non-instructional administrative comp plan. F, dental plan change approval. G, HSA administrator approval. Two H's, H, FSA administrator approval. I, Cobra retiree administrator approval. J, voluntary disability renewal. K, healthcare premium rates. L, vision benefits of America plan renewal rate. And that is it under that item, under that number.
Can we have the one change, Camilla? Can you read that for the board?
In the AAEA agreement, proposed agreement, Article 20, under health insurance, item A should be stricken.
Okay, would anybody want to vote on any of these items separately? Could we do the retention separate from the main contract, since that was part of the negotiated deal?
It's already incorporated within the four corners of collective bargaining agreement, so I don't know how you're gonna do that. I mean, I would say probably not, but Mr. Francis could hypothetically vote yes in favor of the contract, but no in regard to the retention bonus.
Okay. So I guess the answer is no, we can't separate that unless you want to vote that way. Okay, any of the other items you want to vote separately?
I would like to take the part with Act 93. I would like to vote for that separately. The changes to the Act 93, because I would like to vote on that separately.
Which one?
The changes to Act 93's plan.
Changes to Act 93. Okay, we'll vote on that one separate. That would be number, let's see, which one would that be?
C.
C. Okay, so we'll vote on C. C and D, okay. We'll vote on C and D separate. So, any others?
Is that what you want to do?
Okay, we could do each separate with a roll call. Okay, let's go with A. Do we have a motion?
I motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion? Okay, we can do a roll call vote.
Dr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. Francis, Mr. Hoff,
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood, Mrs. Irwin Adams, Mr. Johnston, Mr. Mignon,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Okay,
Passes.
okay, so it'll be 9-0 with no on the retention. Okay. The ASME contract, do we have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote?
Dr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. Francis,
Yes on the contract.
Mr. Hoff. Mr. Greenwood, Mrs. Irwin Adams, Mr. Johnston, Mr. Mignon,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Okay.
Passes.
Compensation plan revisions. Is there a motion? Do you want to do C and D together since they're related? Okay, so let's do C, D, and E together. Is there a motion on those three items? C, D, and E. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? I'll make the second.
I'm going to abstain from this vote.
Okay, and want to announce your
I'm going to
abstention?
abstain for personal reasons.
Okay. Is there a discussion of these three items? Do a roll call vote, please.
Just to make sure I understand, this is for C and D together.
Yes, C, D, and E.
C, D, and E.
And E, thank you. Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Francis, Mr. Greenwood, Mr. Hoff, Mrs. Irwin Adams, Mr. Johnston, Mrs. McGinnis.
I
Mrs.
abstain.
Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. Mignon.
Yes.
Okay, dental plan change approval. Could we have a motion on that item?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, discussion. Roll call vote?
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Francis, Mr. Greenwood, Mr. Hoff, Mrs. Irwin Adams, Mr. Johnston, Mrs. McGinnis,
Yes.
Dr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. Mignon.
Yes.
G is the HSA administrator approval. And, okay, so we have G, HSA administrator approval, H, FSA administrator approval, I, the Cobra retiree administrator approval. Is there a motion on those three items?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? 1 second, discussion. Okay, do a roll call vote.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Francis, Mr. Greenwood, Mr. Hoff, Mrs. Irwin Adams, Mr. Johnston, Mrs. McGinnis,
Yes.
Dr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. Mignon.
Yes.
J, the voluntary disability renewal. Is there a motion?
I'll motion.
Is there a second? Okay, discussion. Roll call vote.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Francis, Mr. Greenwood, Mr. Hoff, Mrs. Irwin Adams, Mr. Johnston, Mrs. McGinnis,
Yes.
Dr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. Mignon.
Yes.
Okay, K is the healthcare premium rates for 2022-23. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, is there a second? 8 seconds. Discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Francis, Mr. Greenwood, Mr. Hoff, Mrs. Irwin Adams, Mr. Johnston, Mrs. McGinnis,
Yes.
Dr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. Mignon.
Yes.
L is the Vision Benefits of America Plan Renewal Rate. Is there a motion? Okay, is there a second? On seconds, discussion. And roll call vote.
Mr. Cook,
yes,
Mr. Francis, Mr. Greenwood, Mr. Hoff, Mrs. Irwin Adams, Mr. Johnston, Mrs. McGinnis,
Yes.
Dr. Malloy,
Yes,
Mr. Mignon.
Yes.
those are all the items on our agenda. and the other items you wish to bring up? Hearing none,